It was about 8 weeks ago, and we were putting together the preparations for the Geneva Motor Show. And we were talking with Elon and said, okay, we're going to be in Europe. We should go visit some other places and say hello to customers. And I said, where would you like to go? And in typical Elon style, he... We should go to Norway, and we should say thank you for all their support. That's what he said.
Yay!
So we set up a schedule, and where else would you like to go? So there were 3 other countries we were going to go to as well. So it was great. So we had this whole thing planned, and we're going to go to Geneva, and we're going to go somewhere before Geneva, and then somewhere after Geneva. And then along came a rocket launch. And it was like, well, can't leave as soon as we were going to leave. So then afterwards, he's got to go back to Texas to do some stuff on Friday, so we had to cut that out as well. So we didn't have any time before, we didn't have any time after, so we had to cut everything out. And I said, we can only go to one place, Elon, where would you like to go? Didn't think for a second. Let's go to Norway. That's what he said. Let's go to Norway. Let's say thank you for the support of Norway. So, ladies and gentlemen, the only place Elon Musk wants to be tonight is right here with you. Elon, all yours.
As George said, I wanted to come here and just for one reason, which is to thank you guys personally for supporting Tesla. That's the most important thing. And it's only because of people like you that Tesla is successful, and it's only because of people like you that the electric car revolution will succeed. And I think there's a huge opportunity here to make Norway the leader in electric cars worldwide per capita, and to set a great example for the rest of the world. And that's what we want to do with your help. So thank you very much. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. So obviously, Tesla is a small company, and we don't really have like a marketing budget or big advertising budget. In fact, we don't have any advertising budget. So we somewhat rely on people to spread things by word of mouth, and you know, press. Sometimes that works. Sometimes there's issues. You know, but the real thing that matters in the long term is, you know, is how do customers feel? How do they like the product? What do they tell their friends? That's what really matters in the long run. But there are a few things that we can do to reciprocate and show some appreciation, and I'm happy to announce a couple of those things. So the first superchargers outside of North America are going to come to Norway. And so we're going to prioritize covering the Oslo, Bergen, Trondheim area, and also the trips to Stockholm. And as in the US, the supercharger, the cost of using the supercharger will be $0. And not just now, but forever. I want to be clear. So that's, I think, one good thing. And then we're also going to deliver the first Model S's outside North America are going to come to Norway as well. Now you may be wondering, okay, when is that? We're planning to start production in June, and and then the first deliveries would occur in July. And we're going to really shift quite a significant portion of our mix to European deliveries, as I said, prioritizing Norway, and so that's when you should expect to start receiving cars. Anyone that's already put down a reservation for the Model S, which I think is probably most people in the room, you should receive your cars this year. If you have any friends that you think might want to buy a Model S, it's important for them to put down a reservation fairly soon. Right now, I think if you put down a reservation, you'd receive your car in Norway in probably the October timeframe, or if you're a new reservation. But in a few months, we will be sold out for the year. So if you know someone that wants to get their car this year, then you should just let them know. If they don't mind getting their car next year, then it's no problem. But I think they're going to want their car this year. So those are we're trying to think of, okay, well, what good things can we do to reciprocate? And those are the two of the things that we thought would be good. And then, of course, coming here in person to just show appreciation. And stores, and so stores and service centers will be obviously we've got one here in Oslo. You're in it, but we're going to establish one in Bergen and one in Trondheim. So that's And let's see, there's a couple. Oh yes. So we recently had a customer, Frederick. I don't know, is he here? Fred? Oh, hey, there you are. Yay. All right, cool. So he just did a great trip all the way from Bergen. And if you don't mind telling the story again, I'd really appreciate it.
Hey.
All right.
Now we drive from Bergen yesterday, and it's quite a nice car.
Thank you.
I had to admit something to you.
All right. The cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I crashed your car.
Okay.
But not the S.
Okay.
It was your Roadster.
Right.
In California.
All right.
And I parked in front of Schwarzenegger's climate conference. And Tony Blair drive into your car.
Damn that Tony Blair.
No. But you have something to wait for. It's really, really fun. And we drive from Bergen to Geilo, and we had 100 kilometers left. And we drive through cold weather, -7, 8. It was slush on the road, it was winter condition, and it's fun. And then I drove with Terje Håkonsen. I had to pick him up and drive him to the Arctic Challenge happening this week, down from Geilo, and we had trouble this morning. The garage door didn't want to go up. But the car was okay. And I think that it's never, ever that anyone can talk about an electrical car as a second car. This is going to be the first car. If we had been fully charged in Bergen and in Geilo, we was a little bit busy, so we didn't charge it fully. We had to have 250 kilometers left when we come to Oslo. And that's an advantage when you come to a new city, that you can drive around in it. So everything when it comes to performance, winter condition, it's fun. It's much better than anything else you have driven. So I'm very, very happy to have been in connection with Tesla for so many years. And in a way, when I was driving from Bergen to Oslo, I was thinking, the future is here today. And it will be a little bit long months until July, but then everything will be okay. And I have a commitment to do. We're going to get this to the most sold car in Norway.
Hey. Yeah.
So I really appreciate Frederick taking it upon himself to do the drive and tell the story, because it is important for people to know, does the car work in winter? Does it work over the mountains? Does it work in snow and rain and all these different conditions? And is it still comfortable to drive? And so that's sort of testimonies like that are really important.
I call Washington Post.
New York Times. There we have it. Yeah, I think those are the main points. Is there anything else you think I should cover? Okay. You know, if people would like to sort of ask me questions, you may need to yell a bit, but I'm happy to sort of address a few questions if you have any.
When was it to decide on the color of the car? In what way?
Right. Well, actually, if you go online, I'm not sure what is the configurator.
We're inviting in sequence order in Europe still.
Okay.
We've gone through 200.
Do you want to join me on stage?
Okay, I can answer the question. We have invited the first 294 in sequence order to configure their cars in Europe. We'll do about another 100 this week, and then we'll probably skip a week and do another 100. And then we're just going to start doing another 100 every single week, and then it'll actually go faster than that. So right now, 294 and more coming each week. All right, so what's your number? Oh, okay. I was going to tell you which Tuesday it was going to be or whatever. It'll be like 2 Tuesdays from now. You'll get your invitation. What'll happen is you'll get an email that'll say it's time to build your Model S, and there'll be a button on there, and you click on there, and you go in and configure, and you choose your colors and everything, and then at the bottom it says finalize. You push the button, you finalize, and then you e-sign your document. We sign and send it back. So it's coming soon. It's easy to do, and actually it's fun. You can play in there now if you want.
Will there be color samples in the
It's right around the corner, I think.
Oh, great.
I think they're around the corner.
Okay, let's see. There'll certainly be, if the color samples, the paint color samples aren't here today, they will certainly be here very soon.
Well, they are there.
Oh, great, okay.
Why is there a difference between the S model, where colors are concerned, and the model which isn't S?
Sorry, which one?
The signature model.
Oh, yeah.
Why is there a difference in colors?
Well, with the signature, we wanted to offer some. Sorry, yeah, good question. I'll repeat the question. So the question is, why are the colors? Why is there a difference in the signature versus the regular production? And we wanted to just offer a few things that were unique in the signature edition. So the sort of special red of the signature edition is uniquely available there. And just essentially to offer a few special things in addition to the signature cars being the first ones that are delivered. And the white interior is also signature only. And the graphics also, you know, it says signature in various places and that kind of thing. So,
are you aware that you have to put in the DAB radio standard for the audio system?
Is that which standard?
Instead of FM radio?
Oh, okay.
We're shutting down the FM radio in Norway.
Okay.
So you really need to check out that digital radio.
Is that we have
European standard, yeah.
Okay. Then yes, absolutely. I wasn't sure if it was called DAB. But the question is, will we be able to receive the European standard DAB radio? The answer is yes. Yeah. Excellent question. So the question is, will there be any difference for the EU version compared with the US version? Yes, I should have mentioned that when I was first speaking. We're developing a new charger for the European version. It's actually better than the charger that's in the American version because it's a three-phase, natural three-phase charger. And it's actually lighter and a little bit more energy efficient than the single-phase in the US. And the socket adapter will be the Meinike's standard adapter in the car, but we will be making an adapter that goes from that to the Chademo as well, which may be also what you're thinking. Yeah. Chademo is popular. Will it be possible to pull a caravan behind the Model S? That is actually the first time I've gotten that question. Unfortunately, no. My apologies. We do not yet have that functionality. The Model X will have towing functionality, but that's 2015. So, yeah.
How about four-wheel drive for the Model S? Will that ever be a reality?
Right. I know. Let me. The question is, what about four-wheel drive for the Model S? It's not going to happen soon. That I can rule out. And I can also say that the rear-wheel drive Model S actually works really well on snow and ice, and we actually have a video on our site, on our website, which shows the Model S doing circuits on a surface of pure ice and snow, so including tracking pylons and doing a race circuit and that kind of thing. So we spent a lot of effort making sure we have very good traction control, and in fact, I'd say it's way better than what you'd normally expect from a two-wheel drive car. And it's because we have much greater precision with the motor, with an electric motor than with a gasoline engine. So we adjust the torque on the rear wheels every millisecond and measure the speed on the front wheels, and we never let the rear wheels go faster than the front wheels. So it's a really high, super responsive traction control, and it feels really good actually on ice and snow. So I wouldn't worry about it. If you're thinking like maybe you need the four-wheel drive, unless you're going to go off-road, I would say probably not. Yeah.
How many superchargers will you roll out this year in Norway?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, how many superchargers will we roll out this year in Norway? I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's probably at least 4, and it may be more than that. So as I said, we want to cover the ability to go Oslo, Bergen, Trondheim, and also Stockholm. So that's going to be we'll do what's necessary to be able to travel those routes with reasonable convenience.
Can you turn off traction control for some winter fun?
You can turn off traction control.
Awesome.
You might have more fun than you realize. Because the car has enormous power.
There's some YouTube videos.
Yeah.
There's some YouTube videos out there with traction control off. It'll show you how powerful the car actually is. I mean, it just smokes.
Yeah.
The car just sort of sits there, and it'll just smoke.
Right.
It's awesome.
You can literally burn the rubber right off the tires with if you take the traction control off.
Yeah.
So exercise with caution.
Approved.
When it comes to range over winter time, will the battery do during cold and
Yeah.
increase on 10%, or what are we talking about?
Yeah. Absolutely. So the question is, what is the range impact when it's cold? What can you reasonably expect? Typically, you get about for moderate cold, you would get about moderate to I know cold can get quite serious, but I'd say for like a day like today, you would see probably a 10% reduction in range. Something we do with the Model S in terms of the thermal management that other cars don't do is we've got a liquid thermal loop that connects every cell in the battery and also connects the motor, gearbox, and inverter and charger. So depending on whether it's a hot day or a cold day, we either take the heat from the powertrain and put that into the battery pack so that you can, while driving, you're making good use of that energy. Or if it's a hot day, then we close that thermal loop and we reject the heat to the outside. So it's got quite a sophisticated thermal management system that really maximizes the potential of the car. You also don't really need to worry about, is the car going to, if it's in a really cold situation, is it going to lose a lot of energy in the battery pack? Actually what happens is the opposite. If you want to store a battery pack for a long time, the best way to do it is to keep it cold. It actually preserves the life of the pack. It doesn't reduce it. So the bottom line is, I'd say it's something like 10%. In a worst case, it may be 15 to 20%. Yeah. Okay. So I'd say if you were to up to about sort of minus 10 degrees Celsius, it should be around a 10 to 15% reduction in range. If you go down to like minus 30 to minus 40, so pretty extreme, around minus 40, it's probably a 20% reduction. But that's, I mean, pretty intense, you know. And it also kind of, you know, yeah. So that's 10 to 20. We've never seen it go more than about a 20% reduction due to temperature. And that's, I mean, you're in a driving blizzard at minus 40. And we actually have a bunch of customers in Canada that have been in that situation. So it's not speculative. We've seen it in actual practice. We've got customers that are, you know, throughout Canada where you have similar temperature ranges that you would expect to experience in Norway.
And Ivan, you want to talk about from the outlet so that it doesn't increase the battery? Can you think of it?
Yeah. In terms of like convenience, you can always precondition the car. So you can control the car from the application on your phone. That's pretty easy to do. And if the car is plugged in to the charger, it's going to draw enough energy to keep the car at a comfortable state. So you don't have to worry, you know, if you come back, is the car going to be really cold? It's going to condition the car to sort of a minimum temperature and kind of keep it at that temperature. So the car is really in a sort of preconditioned and ready to go state. So the question is, does the car need to stay charged at the airport if you're gone for 2 weeks? Right now, we don't have a sleep mode enabled. We actually did have that enabled for a few months, but of course some issues, so we turned it off. And without sleep mode enabled, the car consumes sort of 2 to 3% of its energy per day. Now we will be re-enabling sleep mode. In sleep mode, it's going to be more like 0.2% per day, a very tiny number. You'll literally be able to leave the car for like 6 months and no problem. And so by the time you get it, sleep mode will be enabled. And so you won't have to worry about a 2 to 3% reduction in energy per day. Sure.
In the US, you have support for Slacker. Will there be any similar service in Norway, such as Spotify?
Sure. So the question is, for Model S in the US, we've got Slacker, and we also we use the Tesla software to combine that with Google Voice and Grace Note and a few other things, so you can literally say, you know, play any song. I got a lot of flack for saying play Linkin Park. I mean, like, I don't know what the big deal is. Anyway, you can play any song you like. So you can just say, literally, play Rolling Stones or, you know, almost anything. And now Slacker is not yet operating in Europe, so they say they're in the process of doing that. So if Slacker isn't ready in time, we're going to look for another supplier, because Slacker essentially provides the music library. So we just need access to a music library in order to be able to repeat that functionality. And bottom line is you will be able to play any song you want. And that's really pretty fun. So that's I think unique functionality that we want to preserve throughout the world.
You mentioned that it would keep it warmth in the winter when it's plugged in, but
yes.
In the summer, will it keep it cool if it's plugged in?
So the question is, it will keep, if it's plugged in, it'll keep above a minimum temperature in the winter. Will it stay cool in the summer? Yes, we're essentially going to give it temperature rails. So it's not going to go below a certain number or above a certain number. And we'll make those rails also adjustable. So you can say, okay, keep it between this range or that range, and you'll be able to pick whatever you think makes sense. Or just turn it off if you don't want to do that.
That's great.
Yeah. and you know, and so I should mention, like, you know, we try to get feedback from people, and like, if you know, we don't always listen to the feedback, but if we get it, Well, we can't do everything. That's not easy. But if we get it from enough people and we think about it, and then we'll integrate it. So for a lot of functionality, if you don't see it at first, it's going to come soon. So via CS, over-the-air software updates. Yep.
Can you say something about the battery warranty?
Sure. So the battery is guaranteed for 8 years. So it'll be functional for 8 years. Depending upon how heavy the use will be, that will affect the capacity of the pack over time. But our goal is that even after 10 years, the car is still, the pack still has a meaningful amount of energy. And in our cycling of the pack in the lab, we've gotten upwards of 300,000 miles, or 500,000 kilometers out of a single pack. But the degradation is affected by how much you drive the car. There's a slight impact if you charge to maximum very frequently. But actually, I tell people, like, if you want to charge to maximum all the time, it's no problem. It's not going to avoid the warranty. But generally, unless you need to charge to maximum, there's not, it's better to not do it. Also, if you do charge to maximum, there's no place to dump the energy for regen braking, so the car will feel different if you charge to maximum, because it can't put the energy back into the pack. So the car is not quite as efficient if you do charge to max. Yeah.
Lots of us use ski in the winter, and there's no option to have them on the roof yet.
Oh, on the Model S there is. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the cheaper option for that is just put a slot in the back seat and have a ski bag through the car. We have things like you don't look like you have that.
Sure. Actually, if you...
That would I don't think that would cost much of a reduction, but you could charge, say, $1,000 and...
Right.
I guess all the...
$1,000. You heard it.
For a hole in the seat?
For a hole in the seat.
That sounds like a good deal. So the car does have a split back seat. So it's got a 2/3, 1/3 split on the back seat. So actually you only have to give up one seat on the back if you want to put skis or a snowboard or anything. Which is about the same thing as if we had a hole, through the middle. You still give up one seat, except it's, on the side in our case, but it's in the middle in other cars. But the same number of seat functionality, same seat functionality exists.
skis on the driver?
No, on the passenger. Right.
This is a good thought to bring in a Levaco heater for Norwegian conditions to gas.
Oh, a gas heater. The car's got a lot of energy. It's the advantage of, say, having an 85 or a 60 kilowatt-hour battery pack. It's actually an enormous amount of energy. Like you think of like a typical heater, like is like a 1.5 kilowatt heater. I mean, you could run the car for a long time using 1.5 kilowatts. So I don't think there's a need to have anything but an electric heater. And the onboard heating element has the ability to go up to 6 kilowatts, which it does basically initially, and then it drops the energy usage down as the cabin temperature gets to where it needs to be. So no, it should be fine with just electrical heating.
Regarding the supercharger network, are you set on those three cities in Stockholm, or for instance going from Oslo to Stavanger, which is a major city also, slap out of those times?
Sure. So the question is, what about cities like Stavanger for the supercharger network? Over time, we will cover essentially all of Norway. You'll be able to go essentially anywhere. In fact, within Europe, you'll be able to go anywhere within Europe. And the same in North America. You'll be able to go anywhere in North America. But we just have to prioritize the most heavily trafficked routes first. So hence when we talk to people, they said, Oslo, Trondheim, Bergen, and Stockholm, and so that's going to be our initial focus. But eventually you can count on the whole country getting covered. Okay. the question was, how many cars can charge simultaneously in one supercharger? Right now, one stack of charge electronics can access 2 parking bays, but we're working on an improved version that will be able to access 3 parking bays. And then what we do is we put multiple superchargers. In California, our biggest location currently has 12 spots, and then we monitor the usage of the supercharger to see what the peak usage is and see if there's wait times developing at the superchargers. And then as we see the usage pattern, we increase the number of parking spots and the number of supercharger stacks at a particular location. So, but our goal is to have you almost never wait for a charge. So we size it really to match the peak usage, which is typically on a Friday evening and a Sunday evening, because people are going away for the weekend or on a holiday, basically on a holiday. And the rest of the week it tends to be much less than that. So, yeah, but that's what we size it for. Sure.
About battery replacement, battery technology improves maybe 70% a year.
Right.
So maybe in 5 years you can have 50% more. Will it be possible to install maybe a upgraded battery in the future for an 85 kilowatt car, or is it fixed on 85, or how can that work?
So the question, I think most people may have heard that question, but the question is, let's say, as battery technology improves, say in 5 years, will there be a better battery pack for the Model S? I think the chances are yes. The only thing that's constrained is really the volume and the mass. And then the battery pack actually has its own intelligence, and it communicates its parameters to the car. And so it is possible. I'm not. You have to watch what I commit to. But I think there's a good. Yes. In principle, you could have a. Yes. So, question is, if we say we're able to get 120 kilowatt hours in the same mass and volume, could the car handle it? And the answer is yes. The architecture for the Model S is a generation beyond the Roadster in that because in the Model S, the battery pack has its own brain, effectively, its own processor. Whereas in the Roadster, it's really integrated with the car, and the brain is on the car side. So by having sort of the intelligence on the pack side and on the car side, it's possible to switch out different pack energies. Yeah. Sure.
Roaming, going to Europe. One thing is driving around in Norway.
Right.
You have a plan, a big plan, and people out every month. But what about going to Europe? There we have only European roaming.
Right. So the question is, what about cellular roaming through Europe? So our goal with connectivity is not to make any money. So we just price whatever the best deal we can get for customers is, and it's just basically a cost pass through for us. So we're going to offer both the best deal we can possibly negotiate, both for domestic usage as well as for roaming, as well as tethering. So you'll be able to go through your cell phone, whichever is better, and you'll have that choice. We'll do the best we can. I don't know how good it's going to end up being. I did have lunch with the CEO of Telenor, which is maybe a good sign. Oh, yeah. Right. So the question is, can you turn off the cell modem when you're roaming? Actually, if you're on the Tesla plan, you won't need to turn it off because the way we're pricing it is as a sort of or we will price it as a fixed monthly number. So it'll actually be sort of on us if it costs more to roam. But if you're tethering to your phone, then it's going to be up to you to turn off your phone for roaming. Sorry, yeah?
We often do not have contact with the next door. Why
I beg your pardon, I couldn't hear you.
Where we live up north,
Yep.
we often are not in contact at all with the homeowners. We cannot have any contact. And then the guys can't see what's wrong with the car. Why don't Tesla go iridium?
Oh, okay. Got it. So the question is, why doesn't Tesla use the Iridium satellite network? And so today the Iridium network has very low data connectivity. But I should, on the good news side, say that the SpaceX, this other company, we will actually be launching the next generation of Iridium satellites starting in 2015. So probably by the end of 2016, there will be a vastly improved Iridium satellite network, and that would be definitely worth considering adding Iridium connectivity at that point. There will also, I should mention, be Wi-Fi capability. So there's a Wi-Fi chip in the car, but we haven't yet turned it on because we want to make sure it works really well when we do turn it on. Wi-Fi is actually quite a big pain in the neck. But it will get turned on. In fact, by the time you get your cars, probably the Wi-Fi will be working. And what we want to do with Wi-Fi then is pre-cache songs and Google Maps and that kind of thing when we have a high bandwidth connection. And then, of course, we'll still have offline navigation. So even if you're not connected, you still have navigation capability.
For the three-phase charger, how much volt will it be able to deliver on 230 volts? Much of Norway has 230 volts.
What will be so on 330 volts?
200.
Oh, 230 volts. Oh, yeah. The charger is actually capable of dealing with a range of voltage. In fact, in most places, even if the spec says 220 volts or 240 volts, it's really a range of voltage that if you actually measure it at the socket, it can be a pretty big range, like all the way from like just over 200 volts to 250 volts. It's actually quite a big range. So 230 volts is not a problem for the charger to handle.
Yeah, but how many watts per hour may?
Oh, what's the charge rate?
What's the charge rate?
Okay.
Does it need to be lower than on 440 or something?
Yeah, so the charge rate is a function of the voltage and the amperage. And so the onboard chargers for the Model S, if you have a single charger, it's a 10 kilowatt charger. And if you have the twin charger, it's a 20 kilowatt charger. So let's say you're at 230 volts. The 10 kilowatt charger would be at sort of the 40 amp level, and the 20 kilowatt charger would be at roughly the 80 amp level.
If you have 80 amperes, then you will actually be able to max the 20 kilowatt charger, even on 230.
Yes, so if you have sort of the standard voltage of 230 and then you have an 80 amp connection, that's what's needed to achieve a roughly 20 kilowatt charge rate, as long as you have both chargers in the car. And then for the supercharger, it's actually a high-powered bypassed shunt directly to the battery pack. Yeah. So actually, in fact, it's maybe worth emphasizing that because sometimes there's been some confusion, like what does the twin charger do in the car versus supercharging? And they're actually two very different things. There's the onboard charger, and then you can double that with a twin charger, and that's taking AC current, AC voltage, and then there's the supercharger, which is taking a direct. You're basically mainlining it to the pack. So it's just blasting massive amounts of power through a massive bypass relay to the pack. And in fact, we keep tuning the power level to be able to sort of safely increase the power at which the supercharger can function. So right now the supercharger, we've dialed it up to about 94 kilowatts, but we're hoping to get as high as 120 kilowatts. Yeah?
What kind of charge rate can we expect with the supercharger in, for example, like 10 minus 50 Celsius?
Okay, so the question is, what kind of rates can you expect from the supercharger at minus 10 degrees or minus 15 degrees Celsius? The supercharger will actually always be capable of outputting the same amount of power. because it's in an insulated box and it's actually generating excess heat. So no matter what the outside, it could be minus 40, the supercharger will always be capable of delivering that level of power. And as long as you don't have a cold soaked pack, as long as the pack hasn't been sort of sitting in a hot car for a long time, the charge rate will actually be very rapid. So it'll be able to charge at the 100 kilowatt rate. Because the typical driving pattern would be you've driven somewhere and you've arrived at the supercharger. And when you do that, you actually will arrive with the pack being warm. And the pack will be able to receive the power at a very high rate. Right, so, and I apologize if we're getting too much into the charger scenario, but I'll answer what questions. If you're feeling bored, you're welcome. Don't feel an obligation to stay. I'll try to answer every question I possibly can. And I am super jet lagged, so if I sound like I'm maybe not 100%, that's the reason. So the question is, so if you've got 32 amps of power at your house available to the car, three-phase, and presumably at 230 volts approximately, then you'll be charging at a little below 10 kilowatts. So you'll be at sort of maybe the 8 or 9 kilowatt level. Because roughly 40 kilowatts is where you get to the, in that range, because it's going to vary depending upon how much voltage you get. I'm getting quite technical here. But essentially, if you have a 32 amp feed, then you're going to get at most 10 kilowatts. If you have sort of a 70 amp to 80 amp feed, then you're going to get 20 kilowatts. And so since the battery pack is either an 85 or a 60 kilowatt hour pack, it's going to take, if you've got 20 kilowatts of charge rate, it's going to charge in sort of roughly 4 to 5 hours if you have the 20 kilowatts, or 9 to 10 hours if you have the 10 kilowatt charger. It sounds like we may be getting into sort of overly... Somebody ask a question that you think everyone in the room wants to know the answer to. Or anything, yeah.
Is it going to be possible to override the automatic suspension? In Norway, we don't have flat roads.
Right.
As you may have noticed.
So is it possible to override the ride height of the air suspension? And the answer is yes. You can manually set the ride height from the touchscreen interface.
Will it stay that way at speed?
Right now, the car automatically lowers at speed. And the presumption, which may be an incorrect presumption, is that if you're doing 120 kilometers an hour, you're probably not doing it on a bumpy road. All right. Okay, so the question is, what is the risk of an explosion or fire if you're in a serious car crash? In the battery pack, right. Assuming you're not carrying explosives in the car. The risk of an explosion is zero. So definitely absolute zero on the explosion front. The risk of a fire, I would say, is negligible. If the car is in such a crazy accident that there's a risk of a pack fire, well, you probably will not be around to experience it. So the car is really designed to be incredibly safe. We've never had a battery pack fire in any production Tesla ever, including in ones that have been in serious accidents. So it's not completely out of the question, but we've never had it, and not in any of our crash cars or anything like that. So I think it's extremely improbable. Well, let me put it this way. The probability of having a fire in the Model S is vastly lower than in a gasoline or diesel car. Vastly lower. Like by an order of magnitude. Who in the back there? Yeah. The service. Oh, the service plan. Okay, so yeah, an annual service in the car in the U.S. is sort of on the order of $600, and it's a super comprehensive annual service and review where we just replace anything that, except the tires, anything else, or whatever it is.
It's right about 4 times that.
We have a really good deal for you.
Everything in Norway is about 4 times as much. We haven't priced. But just like with the car, it's going to be comparable. I mean, we didn't blow. I mean, think about what we did with the car here. We did not in any way take advantage of what we could have done with the car here because of incentives and stuff. We did not do that. We just took and said, this is how much it's going to cost to ship it. This is how much it costs for duties and just stuff like that. And that was the price. We're going to do the same thing with service.
Exactly.
That I sit in the meetings when we price things, and I can tell you that he guides us to not ever take advantage, ever, of anything pricing-wise around the world. So you have Elon to thank for that.
I mean, essentially, what we're trying to do is say, put ourselves in the position of a customer and say, okay, what's the right thing? If I were a customer, what would I think is the right thing to do? And so that is a general principle. Like it always seemed to me like wrong if manufacturers would, price according to what a car could get in a country, and everyone can figure that out. It's like there's the internet, so you know it's happening, and it just doesn't feel right. So our goal, our objective, we may not always succeed in this, is only to make the same amount of money in any car, no matter where it is in the world. So.
Yeah, I have a question with the Model X. Have you tried to open the doors when there's a lot of snow on the roof?
So the question is the Model X, what happens when there's a lot of snow on the roof? Right. I would recommend wiping it off. We haven't tested it exactly, but we'll see. I mean, the Model X, it's a bit of a, we're trying to push the envelope to do new things that haven't been done before. There's always a bit of risk when that happens. But if you don't take a few of those risks, then you never figure out if there's something that's newer and better that can happen. So, right?
Will there be any more new options for the Model S?
So will there be any additional options for the Model S?
Think before you speak.
Right. Yes. Well, the answer is there will be additional options over time.
Stocks are
nothing we're prepared to announce right now. Okay.
You're actually, but then we do have to, and they're really good.
What about colors?
The colors we have sample colors here. In fact, you mean future new colors? We're not planning on any in this sort of this year anything beyond the new red that's coming out. That's basically it.
Excuse me, it has this wide car for European standards. Have you considered electrically folding side view mirrors?
Have we considered electrically folding side view mirrors? We did, but in making the Model S, we had to decide, well, what is one of the toughest things is what features do we not have, and that is something that in the future would make sense, but it's just not something we've been able to do now. Yeah.
How about sports seats?
Sorry.
Is there anything in the pipeline for all the dedicated
So the question is there anything in the pipeline for all the dedicated roadster drivers? There's nothing in the pipeline in the short to medium term. Once we feel really solid, with Model S, because we have to prioritize our resources, and we need to make sure we stay on time for European deliveries and make sure any quality issues are addressed, make sure the car can be produced profitably and all that sort of stuff. We need to take care of all of those things. But I do want to circle back to the Roadster in the future when we have the resources to do so and do something special for Roadster owners. So, all right.
We're going to take 2 more questions. All right, two more.
Headlight washers, wow. No plans for headlight washers in the, not.
What are they?
Definitely a future, long term maybe. Yeah, go ahead. Sure. So the question is, do I think that I'll step down from Tesla at some point and just work on SpaceX or rockets? As far into the future as I can imagine, I expect to be with Tesla. So no plans for SpaceX. You have a question? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
How big was your smile when you heard the New York Times had accepted it?
Yeah. So your question was, how did I feel about when the New York Times, the public editor, acknowledged that maybe there were some errors in the article? That was, it's quite satisfying.
You're supporting the European ISO standard for child seats.
We do expect to support all major standards in Europe and North America. So the answer is yes. I don't know the specifics of that particular item, but I can say the general principle is to support all major standards. Yeah. All right. So thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. As I mentioned, the main reason I came here is just to say thank you to all you guys for supporting Tesla. The only reason that Tesla is going to succeed and that the electric vehicle revolution will happen is because of people like you. So thank you very much.